I think anyone who has an IQ above room temperature can look at what is being given to us either by TPUSA, Erica Kirk, the intelligence community, Kash Patel right now, and say that what they are telling us about the tragedy involving Charlie Kirk is a lie. That, I mean, doesn't take much more than 2 working brain cells to put that together. Nick Fuentes is not one of those people. This is what he has to say when asked point blank, how is it that a 30-6 round stopped in Charlie Kirk's neck and the Man of Steel, his titanium neck, somehow forced the bullet to go all the way down to C4 vertebra, and it magically just stopped in his body? This is Nick's response. We're going to break it down, and I'm going to explain why this is so silly. Okay, let's take a look.
That's not what you're saying, you fucking stupid idiot.
You have to clarify one question for us grow-wipers. Do you really believe Kirk's...
Go back here.
You have to clarify one question for us grow-wipers. Do you really believe Kirk's neck absorbed a 30.06 bullet? Just a simple yes or no is fine.
First of all, fuck you, you're stupid. Stop watching my show tonight. Like, seriously, unsubscribe and don't watch anymore. Just a yes or no will do.
Yeah, just make sure never ask Nick any questions about whether the FBI, the Zionist Israel FBI, is lying about Charlie Kirk. You'll have to subscribe from his show forever.
First of all, nobody's saying that his neck absorbed the bullet.
No, that's actually exactly what they're saying. Wait, no one's saying that his neck absorbed the bullet? Let's see.
But the doctor told us, came out there and told us. And then they also told Chief of Staff. So the bullet came in and hit the vertebra. So it came in and then tore up everything in the wound cavity, hit the vertebra, crushed it, shattered it, turned, crushed the second one, turned, kept going down all the way, I think they said C6.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's like, why not put that info out?
So, actually, yes, that is exactly what they're saying. They're saying that his neck absorbed the bullet, the 30-6 round. That is actually exactly what they're saying. But okay, let's hear Nick out here. Genius take.
What you are saying is that there is a mysterious second shooter that shot him with another gun, and some interagency conspiracy planted the wrong gun. Is that what you believe?
Nick needs to take a class on logical fallacies.
Nick just needs to stop lying about the FBI and Charlie Kirk, and he needs to stop doing cover for the Zionist FBI, I think.
They got the wrong gun with a different bullet caliber, and they fucked that up? Whoops. Oh, man, Kash Patel and Netanyahu must be facepalming. Damn it. Oh, man, we almost got away with it, but we put the wrong gun in the woods.
So this part is very important, okay? Nick is saying it is inconceivable that the FBI could have possibly put the wrong gun in the woods that they then later allegedly found and tied to the assassination. He's saying inconceivable, never would have happened. You have to be so low IQ to believe that could have ever happened. Remember that. Remember that he said it's literally retarded to believe that they could have put the wrong gun in the woods. Okay?
Our shooter shot him with a handgun, who no one has identified and has found any evidence of, as far as we know, doesn't exist. Oh, but we planted the wrong gun. What do you think? They fished it out of a barrel? Here's our barrel of fake prop guns for false flags. Just take any one of them. The Goyim won't know. Oh no, Candace saw that his head didn't turn into a pink mist. Is that what you believe, or what happened there? Do you know that Martin Luther King Jr. was shot with a 30-06? Candace Owens said...
Martin Luther King was shot with a 30-06. Nick cracked it. It totally could have happened.
Is there any example in history of a person being shot with a 30-06 and there's no exit wound? Yeah, I'll do you one. How about MLK Jr.?
Well, we're going to look more into that in a second, but I guess Nick not only believes the official FBI narrative about Charlie Kirk, he also believes the J. Edgar Hoover official narrative, FBI narrative about the MLK Jr. assassination, which is objectively hilarious if you know anything about this history, because the FBI and the man who is responsible for being the key connector in the MLK assassination, they were actually sued in 1999, I believe, by Coretta Scott King, Dexter King, the Martin Luther King family. And they presented over 70 witnesses in this case and 4,000 transcripts to prove that the FBI, the CIA, the U.S. Army, and the Mafia were all involved in the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and they won the court case. It was a civil court case, but they won the court case unanimously. The jury ruled unanimously in favor of the King family that actually the FBI's official story didn't add up, and the FBI was responsible for this, okay? For this conspiracy. And also, he said that the bullet got lodged in Martin Luther King. Well, that's a distortion of facts, actually, because Martin Luther King, when he was shot, he was shot at the Lorraine Motel, and he was leaning over the railing on the second floor of the motel, and he was looking down and talking to Jesse Jackson down below him. So imagine, he's like leaning over like this. So the person across the street in the boarding house that fired at him, it was actually right below the boarding house that the person fired at him. They actually had like a direct line down from an elevated surface down the line of sight into the body of Martin Luther King because he was looking down. And the bullet, what actually happened was it entered through his right jaw, completely exploded his jaw. There was an exit wound about 3 inches between his jaw and his neck. And then the bullet, the fragments of the bullet, there's no photos of the fragments. There's no definitive proof that, as the story goes, you know, there was like 3 fragments of the bullet or something lodged into him. But there was actually an exit wound. And so the jaw didn't stop him, stop the bullet. And some fragments got lodged into the shoulder, down from the shoulder into Martin Luther King Jr.'s body because of the direction he was sitting at, okay? Which is a very different thing than this right here, which is the Charlie Kirk assassination, which assumes that from a slightly elevated surface, Charlie was shot, the bullet entered horizontal to the C2 vertebra or whatever, and then somehow it hit it, and as you heard in the previous video, it magically turned around and went down, and then hit another one and went all the way down to C6. That's a very different story than what happened to Martin Luther King Jr., and as I just mentioned, with Martin Luther King Jr., there was an exit wound in his neck. But let's keep listening.
MLK Jr. was shot in the face with a .30-06. It left a small entry wound. It traveled down, and where do you think it landed? I think it landed in his collarbone or in his shoulder.
3 inches is not a small exit wound. And what did he say?
With a .30-06, it left a small entry wound.
He said entry wound, so he doesn't even. I don't think he even knows that there was an exit wound.
It traveled down, and where do you?
Yeah, he's insinuating that the bullet like went down from his cheek through his neck and then all the way down to his shoulder, which that literally makes zero sense. No, it entered his right cheek. There was an exit wound after it exploded in his cheek, 3 inches long, and then fragments allegedly went into his shoulder.
Where do you think it landed? I think it landed in his collarbone or in his shoulder area, because that is how bullets behave.
That's actually not how bullets behave, because you don't even know how the bullet behaved in the MLK shooting, according to the official autopsy reports.
Depending on what type of round it was, depending on the quality of the bullet, what the projectile actually was. Yes, sometimes bullets do these things. When they enter the human body, yes, sometimes they will change their trajectory, or they will split into different pieces. They do a lot of different things. Different bullets are designed to do different things inside of the human body. Have you ever heard of a Full Metal Jacket? Have you ever heard of a hollow point? Different bullets are designed to do different things upon impact. And people say, so you're saying it absorbed this bullet? And it's like, you don't know anything about the subject, because if you've done any research, any ballistics expert will tell you that bullets do weird things when they go inside of a human body. You know, and that's just like physics 101.
It's just like physics, bro. It's just like physics. Bro, it's like physics. I don't know how MLK was actually assassinated, but bro, it's just like vibes in physics, you know? It's like divine vibes in physics. And also, I'll remind you one last time, this is what he said about the possibility of the FBI putting the wrong gun on the bushy, grassy area that was searched on Google search analytics. According to Google search analytics, it was searched from Israel, this exact address where the gun was found, like a few days before the shooting took place. This is what he said about that.
First of all, nobody's saying that his neck absorbed the bullet. What you are saying is that there is a mysterious second shooter that shot him with another gun, and some interagency conspiracy planted the wrong gun. What you believe? They got the wrong gun with a different bullet caliber, and they fucked that up?
So anyways, Nick says that it's just physics, bro, and there's no way that the FBI put the wrong gun down, but it may surprise you to learn that in the assassination example that Nick cited, the MLK assassination, they actually did place the wrong gun at the scene at which the alleged weapon was found. And we know that because the man who was the patsy in the MLK assassination, his name was James Earl Ray. Now, interesting tidbit about James Earl Ray. He was a man who was imprisoned for 20 years for robbing a grocery store, and he broke out of the prison somehow. No one really knows, but when they showed up to the prison cell that he escaped from, his cellmate had both of his arms and his legs broken in half. And as soon as he got out of the prison cell, James Earl Ray magically met someone named Raul, this guy who started giving him foreign passports and gave him a lot of money, and started telling him he had to do certain things, like buy a pump-action rifle. And because Raul was working with Cuban exiles, so this Raul character was tied to the MLK assassination. He was working with Cuban exiles, and they had to show these Cuban exiles the amazing weaponry that we have in the United States because we're going to sell it to the Cuban exiles. So James Earl Ray had to go and purchase a whatever rifle. It's like a pump action rifle of some kind. It was a Remington 760 Game Master rifle, 30-06. He had to go buy this so they could show the Cubans. Okay, and he had to go buy it right before MLK was assassinated. And then what ended up happening was he bought the wrong gun twice. Okay, I can show you a little video of exactly how we know that. So this is what Nick is saying, you know, never could have happened. This was impossible. There's no way they put the wrong gun down on the ground. Well, this is what happened in the MLK assassination.
To get away with, his cellmate, who had told him to try to escape, was found hanging in his cell with his arms and legs broken. The official story being that he hung himself and then broke his arms and legs. I don't even know how to tie that back into the whole conspiracy. Escaping jail, that he met the figure known as Raul. Despite the name and every description that was given of him, Raul was not Spanish, and it's not uncommon for operatives to have names that intentionally mislead those trying to look for them. This Raul seemed to be very generous to the escaped convict and began supplying Ray with money as well as fake IDs and passports so he could move from the United States to Canada. It was even Raul who gave Ray money and told him to go to Birmingham, Alabama and buy himself a nice car, to which Ray bought the white Mustang. According to Ray, Raul was a weapons dealer who was selling guns to Cuban militants who were hiding in the United States. Ray was sort of working as Raul's pseudo-business partner for a while, and then one day Raul told him that we're going to need about 200 rifles to sell to a group of these Cubans. He then asked Ray if he could go to Alabama and buy a rifle to show the Cubans as a preview of what the other 200 rifles are going to be like. That is when Raul told Ray to specifically purchase a Remington 760 in 30-06. To which, as I mentioned earlier, Ray went there, bought it in the wrong caliber, and then after showing Raul, Raul told him he had to take it back and get it exchanged for the right one.
So you hear that the patsy in the MLK assassination bought the wrong gun. He was told to go return it and get the correct gun because they couldn't have, they couldn't have the real assassin fire a gun that was the incorrect caliber to the gun that the patsy was going to be caught with, okay? But what ended up happening was the second gun that James Earl Ray actually bought, that they ended up using to frame him as a patsy, also was not the correct gun. Take a look.
What the other 200 rifles are going to be like. That is when Raul told Ray to specifically...
Okay, let me go back to the exact... So this is proof that it was the wrong gun.
So let's talk about the first big issue in this entire case, and the one that should have been a red flag to the investigators, but wasn't, again, for reasons we'll talk about. The rifle that was in the bedsheet was never matched to the bullet that hit Martin Luther King.
That
Remington 760 Game Master they've got in the Civil Rights Museum is not the murder weapon. The thing the state relied upon was the rifle, but modern scientific methodology excluded that rifle from being the murder weapon. The bullet they pull out of King's body has a rate of rifling twist of 1 turn in every 11¼ inches. The rifle that Ray had a rate of rifling twist of 1 turn in every 10 inches in a bad manufacturing defect that is not apparent on the death slug.
For those that don't know, the way that a rifle works is within the barrel itself, there is a series of grooves that spin the bullet and allow it to have a spiral and more accurate trajectory after it comes out of the barrel. While rifling is always similar on similar model of guns, the exact combination of what happens between the chamber and the bolt and the rifling and everything else is entirely unique to every single gun. And the most conclusive evidence they could say is that both the bullet that hit King as well as Ray's gun were probably the same model of rifle. Which, yeah, there were literally millions of Remington 760s in the United States. That doesn't prove anything. The other hiccup in the story...
So there you go. In the MLK assassination, which was the assassination that Nick Fuentes used to make this stupid argument, he doesn't even know the fact that James Earl Ray, the patsy, he first bought the incorrect gun, wrong caliber. Then he bought a gun that had the incorrect rifle twist. So it's really not a good argument. I mean, if like one of the most famous assassinations in all of American history, the rifle barrel that the patsy was caught with, the spins in the barrel do not line up with the bullet that was used, the round that was used, is it really all that insane to think that maybe they fucked it up again? You really think that Kash Patel is more competent than J. Edgar Hoover? J. Edgar Hoover was a lot of things, but incompetent, maybe to a certain degree. He was so obsessed with the Red Scare that it kind of ate at the heart of the organization that he was trying to utilize to instill force on the American public, and it undercut it. But, well, I'll just say that I think Kash Patel is far more incompetent of an evil actor than J. Edgar Hoover ever was. And even the FBI, CIA, Mafia, U.S. Army ring that put together the MLK assassination, for which they were successfully sued in 1999 in a civil lawsuit by the King family, they even fucked up. They put the wrong gun out there, okay? So there's that. Also, I don't know, but Nick is saying that it's just physics, bro. It's just vibes. It's physics. I personally don't believe that Nick is all that much of a gun guy. Here's a gun guy talking about how he actually tested the 30-aught 6-round on, gel prototypes, on, I think he used like cow bones or elk bones or something very strong. You'll see it in the video. And for Mig, thank you.
So after you bought the wrong gun twice, did the feds just say, oh well, screw it, just do it? Hilarious.
No, actually, what ended up happening was back then when the case went through, they did not possess the forensic capacity to be able to gauge what sort of a barrel that the bullet fragments fired out of. According to modern forensics that we now have access to, the bullet fragments that were left behind have been tested, and it showed us, as Judge Joe Brown discussed in that clip, that the bullets actually do not match with the rifle barrel that is currently hanging in the Civil Rights Museum, which was the rifle that was allegedly placed by James Earl Ray. But the only person who saw James Earl Ray place the bed sheets that contained the rifle and the overnight bag in front of this store nearby the assassination spot was a man who had been arrested 150 times throughout his life, mostly for public intoxication or committing crimes while he was publicly intoxicated. And years later, I think in 97, he was interviewed by ABC News, and they held up a photo of James Earl Ray, the patsy, to the drunken man who was the state's main star witness that claimed to have been the only person that saw James Earl Ray running with the gun and throw it on the ground. He was given a photo by ABC News of James Earl Ray, And the interviewer said, so is this James Earl Ray? Is this the man that you saw the day MLK was assassinated? And the guy looks at it and he says, no. That guy, James Earl Ray, he's got fuller hair. His face is more full. His nose is wider. It's not the same guy, no. And he just looks at the interviewer, and the interviewer's like, what? You know? There was 70 witnesses that William Pepper, the attorney for the King family, brought to trial in the civil lawsuit. And each one that was a witness that saw the events that day, a firsthand witness, they all said that the man who shot Dr. King did not shoot him from inside the boarding house. It was actually a man that shot him in a little shrubbed area below the boarding house. And they saw him run away. And it was actually the man that owns the store below the boarding house. So he was in the area. He was a 30-year veteran of the Memphis Police Department. He had very close connections with the mafia, and the mafia was the one that set it up. And well, there's some gray area in the story as to how it all happened, who fired the bullet, who disposed of the gun. But one thing is for certain, that when they tried to do a retrial for James Earl Ray, William Pepper, the lawyer who eventually represented the King family successfully in the civil case against the FBI and defeated the FBI, he actually and several others tried to bring a case forward while James Earl Ray was still alive. And this is what happened to everyone.
Unique to every single gun.
This is what happened to everyone who tried to work to bring a retrial for James Earl Ray while he was still alive. James Earl Ray died a year before the King case finished, the civil case. But this is what happened when they tried to do a retrial for James Earl Ray. Take a listen.
Atkinson said that he overheard Earl Clark say to another police officer, "We're going to have to cut the branches down. He couldn't have taken a shot from here." Which, if you'll remember...
That's also an amazing part of the story. The communal bathroom in the boarding house where James Earl Ray allegedly shot Dr. King from, when the police got there, they noticed that there was a giant tree branch in the way, obscuring the view of what a shooter would be looking at towards the Lorraine Motel where Dr. King was shot at. So the night after Dr. King was shot, the Memphis Police Department sent the sanitation department down to right in front of the boarding house and had them chop down the tree branch that was obstructing the view for the sniper to look, or the rifleman to look at the Lorraine Motel where they would shoot at. They literally went down and chopped down the tree to make the story more believable the night Dr. King was assassinated. And Nick is saying like, oh, it's inconceivable that they left the wrong gun. Bro, look at what they did with MLK. Look at what they did with JFK. Look at what they did with RFK. RFK, they had like more bullets in RFK's body and the surrounding area than the amount of bullets that could have been held in the actual gun that Sirhan allegedly shot at RFK. It's so stupid. But this is what happened when they tried to do a retrial.
The branches mean a shot couldn't have been taken, and the MPD worked all night to make sure none were there. Also, Tennessee State Commissioner at they were a yellow he started down. They also said that before his death, the last time they saw him, he was trying to tell everyone the story of the shooter who was escaping the crime scene. Remember how I said earlier that despite all this, James Earl Ray couldn't get a retrial? Well, at first, he had a lawyer, Z.T. Osborne, the former lawyer of Jimmy Hoffa, come and say that he would try to get him a new case. 3 months after this, Osborne committed suicide, and his wife said that she never believes that he actually killed himself. Shortly after this, a judge said that he would look at the case because the evidence shows that Ray needs to be retried, and then he died of a heart attack. Another judge came in his place and says that Ray needs to be retried, and then he died of a heart attack. And then the third guy says, nope, no retrial, don't need it, he just leave him in there. A year after the assassination, Martin Luther King's brother, Alfred King, was also looking into all of the details of this, until he was found floating dead in his at-home swimming pool. The official story is that Alfred drowned. However, Alfred was a fantastic swimmer, and even more alarming, did not have any water in his lungs. He was also wearing just his underwear and had severe bruising around his neck, but the police decided that it it was a drowning. In 1971, Bill Sater, a reporter who was looking into the whereabouts of this assassination, was asking questions in Waco, Texas, whenever his drink was poisoned and he died.
So that's what happened when they tried to look into the MLK assassination. And this is what happened to round off this story. This is what happened when some gun guys tried to test a 30-06 round on various items.
Could cause something that was, and guess what my testing showed? We can go back through it. All right, here, what do we got? Let's go to the cow neck vertebrae.
They shot a cow neck vertebrae.
Okay, remember this? Cow neck vertebrae?
Vertebrae.
Okay,
Explode.
So, as you can see, the cow neck vertebrae,
What else we got?
it's a lot of times.
Cow femur.
They shot a cow femur. Much, much stronger than the C4 vertebra in Charlie Kirk's neck, unless you believe Andrew Colvit's story that he was the Iron Man of Steel.
This thing is gigantic.
100 times
All right,
stronger
so
than a human neck.
That's what we're hitting next. All right, let's go.
Maybe I did miss.
Here we go. We'll go back.
Okay.
Oh, look, it exploded.
Okay.
Went right through.
Maybe I
So, my challenge to Nick Fuentes is, if you know how to use a gun, my advice to Nick Fuentes is, rather than sit in your studio and act like everything is just vibes and physics, bro, why don't you go and actually test this? If you really believe that Charlie Kirk was the man of steel and his C4 vertebra somehow stopped and, I guess, made the bullet change course all the way down to the C6 vertebra, and that this was all just a magical thing, and why don't you go test it? Why don't you go shoot a gun at something and see if it can go through, like, a steel plate? Why don't you see if it can go through a steel plate? Why don't you see if it can go through cinder block? Why don't you see if it can go through the skull of a moose? I don't know, like, just test it on literally anything, because there's tons of expert riflemen and gun experts that are out here testing things that are 100 times, 500 times stronger than a human neck vertebra. And everyone is getting the same result, that it just blows up on sight and, yes, does turn into pink mist. And also, if you really believe that no one could have ever put the wrong gun in the shrubbed area that the gun was found in next to Charlie Kirk's assassination, go back into history and reread what happened in the MLK assassination, because you love to bring it up as an example. First of all, you leave out the fact that there was an exit wound. Second of all, you are leaving out the fact that, yes, the J. Edgar Hoover FBI, a far more competent FBI than Kosh Patel's, they actually got the incorrect gun as well. Twice, if you can believe it. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.